Good day, viewers, learners and listeners out there. The last time we discussed on our study of entrepreneurship, we discussed section 8, where we talked about small business and the entrepreneur. There we explain the importance of small business to the entrepreneur and why small business and entrepreneurship are somewhat inseparable. We affirmed that the entrepreneur, after carrying out their innovation and creative activities, normally use the small business workshop as their laboratory, and that is why there is a very thin line of distinction between the small business operator and the entrepreneur. Today we are moving ahead to study section 9, and it is titled Economic Resources and the Entrepreneur. Economic resources and the entrepreneur. What are economic resources and how are they important? How are they useful to the entrepreneur? Of what importance are these economic resources to the entrepreneur? Without missing words, let's move ahead to explaining what is the meaning of economic resources. The term economic resource is taken to mean the traditional 4 factors of production organized for use in the productive process by the entrepreneur. And that is to say, in simple terms, that when we say economic resources, what we are referring to are just the simple factors of production that we were taught in our secondary school or college days. The term economic resources simply connotes the 4 basic factors of production that are used in the productive process. In the course of our lecture in study section 7 and 8, we have mentioned this production function, how it is important to the entrepreneur and the function the entrepreneur performs in that chain. These factors of production are also called the inputs in the productive process. They are the factors that are organized by the entrepreneur in varying proportion to bring forth a given output. These factors are 1, land, number 2 is labor, then number 3 is capital, and the 4th one is the entrepreneur. Here, the entrepreneur performs the function of the organizer who organizes the 3 other factors for production to actually take place. So, having known the meaning of economic resources and what economic resources are, that is land, labor, capital, and the entrepreneur, let's now move ahead to discuss each of them just in a nutshell. By land is meant the factor of production that is bequeathed to man by God. It is believed that land itself predates the advent of human beings on the planet Earth. Before God created Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, God created land. Land has been in existence before the creation of human beings. Man himself is a creation and a product from the soil. If we check the Bible, King James Version or any other version, beginning from the book of Genesis, particularly from chapter 1, if you read through verses 1 to 9, you will affirm and you will agree with me that land predates the creation of man, and it predates even the creation of the Garden of Eden. Land has been in existence before human beings and all other creatures in the garden were created. Before the birds in the garden, the animals, the oxen, the sheep, camels, and all other inhabitants that were sojourning in the Garden of Eden were created, God had created land. So land has been in existence for a time immemorial. And land, by definition, it includes all resources on land. All resources on land is part of land, including the ones beneath the soil and the waters, the seas, the oceans lying above or even beneath the earth's surface. All of them are regarded as products of land. And this land, the entrepreneur makes use of it as an important factor in the productive process. Without land, it will be extremely difficult for a productive activity to be carried about. You can hardly do any business on air. Most businesses are organized having in mind that you need a space. That space that you need is land. So land includes all that is above or beneath the earth's surface, to include all the waters, the soil, the trees, the oceans, and all other things lying above or beneath the earth's surface. And land itself is inclusive of all creatures working on land, because all of them are products of land. Human beings are made from the soil, as exemplified in the book of Genesis. Animals and all other creatures are products of land. So land is all things lying either beneath or above the earth surface. And the reward the entrepreneur gives for making use of land in that productive chain is called rent. A rent is given as a reward for making use of land to organize productive activity. When you use a land to produce a given item, you don't use it for free. You pay a reward, and that reward is called rent. Another factor of production and the next important economic resource is labor. Labor is the second factor of production in the production function, and it is all human, physical and mental effort of human beings. All the efforts that human beings display or use, either human, either physical or mental, in the productive chain is regarded as labor, and it includes the farmer who plants on the farm. Labor can be exemplified by a farmer who plants on the farm. The worker who works in a factory for his daily pay is equally an example of labor and is being referred to as a laborer. The manager who organizes and arranges factors of production in the productive process is equally part of labor. The entrepreneur who innovates, who assembles other factors, land, labor and capital for effective production is equally part of labor. The gateman who opens the door of the premises of a company, and the president who governs a nation, all of them are parts and are regarded as part of labor. The reward for labor is either a salary or a wage rate. A wage rate is paid as a reward for labor or either a salary. Time will not permit, we will have gone into the concept of wages and salary in terms of whether a wage rate is paid in piece or volume rate or whether it is paid on time rate. But what is important to know at this junction is that a reward accrues for the use of labor in the productive process, and that reward can either be in form of a wage rate or a salary. The next economic resource in that order is capital. Capital is the third factor of production, and capital is all humanly produced items such as tools and equipment. Buildings used either as factory premises or as office space is part of capital. Machines and other fixed and variable capital consumed in the process of production are all parts of capital item. Capital as an economic resource also includes monies either in cash or in bank, and all other financial institutions and intermediaries, or even in the form of finance provided to fuel the production of motor vehicles or ordinary equipment or vehicles used to transport workers, raw materials and finished goods to the market. All these are part of what is called capital as an economic resource in the productive chain. And the reward for capital is interest. Interest is paid either on monthly basis, on annual basis, or biannually or quarterly as a reward for making use of capital, either in form of finance or in form of equipment or buildings in the productive process. Lastly, we move to the entrepreneur. The entrepreneur is the fourth and very, very important factor of production. The entrepreneur, as we have said in the course of our earlier discussions in other sessions before now, we have mentioned the fact that the entrepreneur is the organizer. The entrepreneur is the one that arranges all other factors of production for effective productive use. They combine land, labor, and capital in various proportion to bring forth an output. An entrepreneur can combine the same factors of production in varying degrees to yield various outputs. 10 mg of chloroquine can be combined with 5 mg of acetamine or whatever to bring forth a given output. The same materials can be varied in proportion, and they can now use 10 mg of chloroquine, 2 mg of acetamine or whatever, and it brings forth another product. And that is what the entrepreneur does. He brings his own ingenuity, he brings his own experience into force to bring out various kinds of products, and this it does by varying the input, and with that is able to showcase several products, all with a view to satisfying the yearnings of the consumers. These three other factors, land, labor, and capital, on their own are even meaningless, because on their own they cannot do anything. Land, of course, will just be there, it will be static. Labor also, even though it's mobile, will equally be there, and capital items are ever there waiting to be explored. But there is need for somebody who now combines them, and that person is the entrepreneur. And that's why the entrepreneur is believed to be the most important factor of all the factors in the factors of production. But a school of thought has it that labor is the most important factor of all the factors of production, because even the entrepreneur himself is categorized as being part of labor, and even capital, all capital items, is believed to be a product of congealed labor effort. Whichever is more important, either labor or the entrepreneur, the fact remains that without the entrepreneur and without the organizer, productive activity can never take place. With this, we come to an end of our discussions on study session 9 titled Economic Resources and the Entrepreneur. Permit me to just do a very quick summary of all our discussions on this session. We explained the term economic resource to mean the four traditional factors of production, which are land, labor, capital, and the entrepreneur. And we said that the entrepreneur, of course, is the factor that organizes the three other factors for effective use in the production chain. Thereafter, we move ahead to land, and we said that land is immobile, and land has been in existence even before the creation of man. That land as an economic resource is bequeathed to man by God, and that it has been in existence from time immemorial. And a reference is made to Genesis chapter 1 from verses 1 to 9. More of the advent of land, of course, can be gathered there. Then we move ahead to labor, and we said labor is all human physical and mental efforts of human being, and that a laborer is a gateman who opens the gate of a factory, as well as the president who governs a nation. The two of them are different categories of labor, and that the reward for labor is either a wage rate or a salary. Then capital, we define it as the third factor made use of in the production chain, and that capital includes all the buildings, the equipments, all the machineries, the tractors made use of in the production process. As well, it includes cash, either at hand or in bank or in other financial intermediaries, and that the reward for capital item being used up in the production process is interest. Then the last one is the entrepreneur, which we mentioned that the entrepreneur is the one that arranges all other factors, land, labor, and capital, for effective use to give rise to a productive activity. And we said as a parting note that labor, though very important, but that the entrepreneur seems to be more important in the productive process, because it is the entrepreneur that organizes all other factors for effective use. But that it should be noted that the entrepreneur itself and even capital items are products of congealed labor effort. On this note, we'll round up our discussions on session 9, which is economic resources and the entrepreneur. When next we meet, we will move ahead to session 10, and there we will be discussing about entrepreneur and economic development. Thank you for listening. Until we meet, God bless.